Hello. Hello. Happy Monday. Happy Monday of the eclipse for anybody who's going to make it to see the solar eclipse that's happening today. That should be fun and exciting. We'll give it a second to make sure everything is working where it should be. I hope that you all had a fantastic weekend and that you're ready for a fantastic week of practicing. Excellent. Looks like things are working. So let's go ahead and officially get started with today's live Monday music motivation. Welcome, welcome. This week is going to be kind of a fun one. It sort of falls in the theme of rhythm for the month, which is sort of our monthly focus coming into April here. And I really had this as an interesting epiphany. A couple months ago, I did a recital at the end of February, which was a ton of fun and I think ended up being really successful. And it was some very challenging music on that program. And I learned at least one of the pieces in not too long of time. And I was a little nervous about it because it was a very long piece and I only had a few weeks of practice on it. It was a couple months of practice on it, but it came together pretty well, I think. And one of my big epiphanies and realizations that I had is how important the metronome is when it comes to practicing, having productive practice, and really learning the music. And as I started to think about this a little bit more and unpack this a little bit more, it really dawned on me as to why that's the case. And it has to do with the way that we practice when we're not using the metronome. When we're not using the metronome, we're just kind of learning the notes and working on the notes. And I even did this on some of those pieces for the recital, and I'm really trying hard to break that habit and not do that anymore. But what we normally do, I think, and I think this is true for a lot of people, is we get a piece of music and our first step is to sort of go through the notes and sort of check in with the notes and figure out the order of things and start looking at kind of note patterns and working through it that way. But what dawned on me and what I found really interesting about going through that way versus actually even starting right off the bat with the metronome is that we work on learning the notes. Yes, the notes in the piece that we're working on might be in somewhat of a unique order, but I bet even the order of the notes are a lot of scales and scale runs that you've already practiced, scales and thirds, arpeggios, things like that. And unless you're working on a piece that's probably too hard for you, actually, you've probably played every single note in the piece before. So when you're going through it and you're learning it as, okay, I'm going to start by just sort of going through the notes and make sure I know where the notes are, I honestly think that's mostly a waste of time. Again, there's a little bit of a unique order, so there's maybe a little value in that. But really, you don't need to learn the notes. You already know the notes. You've already played the notes before. What you need to be learning is the rhythmic relationship of those notes and how the rhythm fits with the music and how, when we get the timing of those notes correct, it actually turns into the piece of music that we're working on. And you end up learning the piece of music rather than just playing through notes that you already know in a random order or whatever the order of the piece is. And that's where I think using the metronome becomes so super duper valuable, because when you have the steady beat of the metronome clicking away, it's impossible to ignore the rhythm, and it gives your brain something else to sort of think about and something to latch onto. So you aren't just learning the notes in, again, a random order with random timing and just playing through the notes, which your brain's like, okay, I already know these notes, I don't have to think about it. Instead, you're doing it in time, landing really perfectly and getting that timing really solid so that your brain is engaging with the music a little bit better. So it's going to remember those notes and learn the notes more deeply. It's going to learn the timing of the notes better. So that's going to be a little bit more solid. And it's just going to make a world of difference for the productivity and the satisfaction in your practice and as you're learning a piece. So I have a challenge for you this week to do everything with the metronome maybe with the exception of long tones. You can do your long tones when you're really focused on sound quality. You can do that without a metronome because the timing isn't important on that, because you truly are just focused on sound quality and smooth transitions between the notes. But scales, I want you to be doing with the metronome, and all of your music, I want you to do it with the metronome. It doesn't have to be at tempo. You can go under tempo, even if it's a slow, beautiful rubato piece with lots of rubato, still with the metronome, at least for this week. You can put the rubato back in later, it's totally fine, but be really diligent for just 1 week of practice. Practice with the metronome on everything except your long tones. And I'm curious to see how that feels for you and how that feels as far as having a productive week of practice. So give that a try. And I want to tell you about one more thing, because this might be really intimidating and really challenging. I bet some of you who are watching this are thinking, ooh, practicing with the metronome always feels really bad. This is going to be my worst week of practice ever because I'm just going to be frustrated trying to line up with the metronome. Well, I have a solution for that as well, especially if you aren't comfortable practicing with the metronome and you usually find it to be more frustrating than helpful. Then go to quickstartclarinet.com/metronome and check out the exercise I have there. If the metronome is generally frustrating with you, then don't worry about doing everything with the metronome this week. What I want you to do is watch that video at quickstartclarinet.com/metronome. That link is in the description. Watch through that video. Learn that exercise. Do that exercise for this week. Try to do it at least twice a day for this week. The exercise literally takes like 30 seconds to a minute. So do that exercise twice a day for this whole week. Then next week, practice everything with a metronome if that exercise is feeling comfortable. If it takes a few weeks of doing that exercise before it feels really solid, totally fine. Take a few weeks, take as much time as you need to get that metronome exercise feeling solid, and then do a whole week where you use the metronome on every single thing you practice except for the long tones. And I bet you'll be surprised at how satisfying and fulfilling that is. So hopefully that's clear on your challenge for the week. Hopefully that video is helpful for you to sort of get you moving forward. And of course, we can have these excellent intentions of practicing with the metronome, but if we don't actually plan it and actually schedule it, then it may or may not happen. So for the most important part of the Monday Music Motivation, let's fill out our template. So again, here's the template. There's a link in the description where you can get this exact template, or you can just make it for yourself with the date for the week, reflection on how things are going for you, your goal for what you're going to do this week. So your goal should be everything with the metronome, or go to quickstartclarinet.com/metronome and work on that exercise. And then you have your plan for what you're going to work on, when you're going to work on. You take that plan, you put it in your calendar, you set reminders, have it in your planner so you treat it as an appointment that you're not going to miss. Because when we schedule in our practice and we schedule in our growth as musicians, then there's no way for us to not grow, because we're committed to it and we're making it happen. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions about any of this metronome stuff, or the template, of course. I hope that you all have a fantastic week of practicing with the metronome on everything, or doing the metronome and subdivision exercise at that link in the description, quickstartclarinet.com/metronome. Have a fantastic week of practice, everybody, and I will see you next week on the next live Monday Music Motivation. Have a great week, and happy looking at the eclipse for anybody who's going to be able to make it out to do that. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.